Hey guys, welcome to Module 2 of Social Work 541. In this module, this will again be a 2-week module, so this will cover weeks 3 and 4 of the class. In this module, you are going to complete one of the first steps in your research proposal, which is your research question or problem statement, which is due at the end of this module. That section or that assignment reflects heavily back on the workbook section 6. So use that as a good reference to formulate that assignment. But also this time your discussion is to help you take a first kind of crack at your research question. So you really engage in that discussion early and use it to help you kind of work through your research question. One thing, a couple piece of advice is most of the time you have your dependent and your independent variable. Your dependent is your behavior you're looking at. Your independent would be your intervention. So just, keep that in your mind as you're thinking about what type of topic you want to do, what type of research you want to do, and really use that section 6 as a guide to help you through the process. So the discussion, don't worry about being right. There is no right or wrong in this process. That discussion is intended to help you grow and evolve your research question. So when I grade that discussion, I will not be grading on, oh, so-and-so got it right or they got it wrong entirely. It's going to be how you evolved and how you participated in the discussion and how what kind of feedback you gave to your peers. You want quality feedback going to your peers, how much you're learning through the process. So keep that in mind. It's not so much pressure for you to know everything up front. We're all learning this, in it together. You guys are learning, and this is the process, okay? So the discussion is intended to help you on the front end and really work on the discussion before you start working on the research question assignment. So I expect to see you guys working in that discussion early. That will really be helpful to you in the process. So keep that in mind. Now, a couple other things I wanted to address in this key concepts for this reading. We're looking at on the text, looking at the different types of research as far as qualitative and quantitative, but also looking at research ethics. Now, research ethics are a very important topic for those of us as researchers, and the Tuskegee assignment that you'll have due in the next module really is an assignment that revolves around research ethics. So this kind of lays the groundwork for you to understand kind of the research ethics and kind of how it's evolved, and you can apply that information into your Tuskegee paper. So that's kind of the connection there between those. But research ethics are very important to us as social workers. The Social Work Code of Ethics says that we have to treat our clients with dignity and respect, and part of that is through research ethics. We want to make sure that the research that we're conducting is fully ethical and never harmful to a client. So that fits right in with our Social Work Code of Ethics. So understanding that is key. One of the key aspects of that, and you'll understand this through some of your reading in your workbook, is the informed consent process. When we're working with clients in a research type setting, we always have to gain informed consent, and they need to understand that at any time they can quit the study. Their participation is entirely voluntary. We have a lot of human subjects protection now because of unethical treatment in the past. So informed consent has become one of those methods in which we ensure that the participant is fully aware of what's going to happen in the study. Everything that could side effects, any kind of how their information will be held, if it's a confidential study versus an anonymous study. And the kind of key differences between those two things are confidential is there is identifiable information, but we keep it away from publishing or any kind of the researcher safeguards that information. Now, with anonymous, there is no possible way that the researcher or anyone else reading about the researcher or reading about the research after it's conducted could ever know or identify that someone participated in that, someone in particular participated in that study. So it's completely anonymous. And that becomes very important when you're, to understand the difference between the two when you're doing studies on, maybe vulnerable populations or studies with illegal activities. Those that do research on like illegal drug use, may want to have completely anonymous studies because their information could be subpoenaed in court. So if they had done a confidential study, they would have to supply those records. But a study done anonymously, there would be no way to provide that information. That data wouldn't exist, and therefore your clients may be protected more through that process. So that's just an example of kind of why it's important to know the difference between confidential and anonymous. Now, one of the other things you're talking about in your reading this week, or you're reading about, is your cultural competence. And we all think of cultural competence as something very positive, and in the research world, especially in your Tuskegee paper, you might see, I think maybe cultural competence kind of works negatively in that aspect. But as researchers, historically, minorities have been somewhat excluded in research in the United States. So we have to be sensitive to that and understand that we should, not exclude groups based on their minority status. And we need to understand cultural norms. If you're doing research on a specific population or culture, you really need to understand what you're going into. For example, in some countries, it may be, considered rude to look someone in the eye, or to shake their hand may be rude. But depending on the culture that you're working with, you have to understand their cultural norms. Because as a researcher going in to speak with these people, you don't want to initially, provide an environment where that person's not comfortable. So you have to really think about the type of cultural norms that may affect the research when you're going in to do the research, or anyone that's working with your research project. If there are other people that are working collaboratively with you, they have to be trained and understand the cultural norms as well. And how we understand cultural norms are through talking to some of our participants, or through existing knowledge, going back to the literature and seeing what we can find out that way. Because essentially we're just trying to avoid harm. And being culturally sensitive allows us to conduct the research in a way that we can get the most accurate results. Because if we are violating a cultural norm just in the way we're conducting our research, it's going to skew the data that we're going to collect. So that's something just to keep in mind. And in this class, for this particular class, you're going to do everything up until the point where you would actually conduct the research, which is called a research proposal. So you're doing, you're formulating what your methods would be, you're formulating your research question, you're doing the literature review, all that kind of thing, but then you're not conducting the research. So we are doing everything up until that point. So just keep that in mind, because we will not conduct the complete research project that you're developing here today. Now, as you move through the program, you will conduct an actual research project in Social Work 642. So keep that in mind as you move forward. So as far as Module 2, just keep in mind there is a quiz due at the end of the module, your discussion, and also your research question assignment. So keep that in mind for Module 3. I'll also post another video that's more related to your Tuskegee assignment, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, so you can go ahead and get a jump on that. And I hope you guys are keeping up with that reading as well, starting to read that book and keep up with that on the reading, because it will be due in Module 3. So you guys, if you have any questions about your research topic, questions, problem statements, feel free to reach out, email me, schedule a time we can talk one-on-one. In all my research classes, I usually try to encourage students to talk to me one-on-one. A quick phone call, 15 minutes, can solve a lot of problems. And I don't want you guys to spin your wheels and feel anxiety about the research process. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we will get it taken care of. We'll think through it and try to help you get a good firm footing on what your research topic will be. So you guys don't hesitate to contact me. So you guys have a wonderful couple weeks, and good luck with Module 2.